Hey, what's up? My name is Ash Taylor, and today I'm going to show you how to create a synth pop song. So before we get started, this is what it sounds like.
I can't handle all this pain. I hate to break it to you, but nothing feels the same. I don't know who I am. I can't believe we didn't go to plan. I thought it was me and you against the world.
So if you want to stick around, subscribe, do all that stuff, you're more than welcome to. And I'm going to dive into the Cubase session and show you everything that I did in the production. So let's do it. Okay, so here we are in the session. As you can see, it's not that big, honestly. Like in a total, it's like, what, 48 tracks, 63 if you're including sends and grooves. So I thought that I would just walk you through the production process from start to finish, from where I started this idea. So I did start with the drums. More often than not, I'll start with drums because I feel like that's kind of like the core element for most of my stuff. So I knew that I wanted to have something that was like slightly garage inspired. I knew that I wanted to have something with some type of like natural ambience. You can hear that I've got this kind of like really noisy birds, rivers, lake, stream, whatever, and it's really heavily sidechained to the kick. And that was the bass for the whole track, honestly. Like that little drum section was it. So I'm going to go through that in a little bit more detail in a moment, but I do kind of want to work section by section, so let's do it. So the track goes straight into the first verse, and that is made up of just a handful of synth and a bass part and a vocal. It's really, really simple.
Someone in the mirror staring back at me. Is it a stranger? Cause you hardly recognize me. You're the person that I am. I'm just a shell of the man I once was.
Okay, so we're going to get rid of those vocals for now, just mute those, and I'm going to go straight into the bass. The bass parts in the song are super, super simple. The actual main bass, the only bass that's present in the verse, is from one of the Make Pop music packs. I think it's their free bass presets. It's called Atlantic Pad, and it is truly like one of my favorite bass presets ever. So if I just play that. It's super deep and super dark. If I go on to what I've got on this, I really don't have that much, to be honest. I've got a compressor, which is obviously doing my side chaining from my Ghost kick. Then I've got a multi-band compressor, which is just compressing the lows a little bit more and just making them a little bit tighter. I like using multi-band compression on bass stuff, especially because I can kind of get a little bit more control over where I'm compressing, obviously because it is a multi-band. That way I'm not compressing the whole signal, and if there's some really rich harmonics that are a little bit more like, you know, in the mids, I can kind of keep those intact and keep them how they are, but I can still retain a little bit of control over the low end. Then finally, I've just got an EQ, which is pretty much just taking out everything above like 200. And that is really it for the bass for this section. It's really, really simple. If I move on to the main synth parts, this is kind of where it gets a little bit more fun. So I guess we'll break it down top to bottom. So I have this main kind of like grit texture. I love adding like any kind of ambience into my tracks, like anything that's kind of really weird and it would sound uncomfortable on its own. I love burying that in and kind of creating these textures that like sit on the sides of the mix, or kind of sit above the main synth part. I'll play it in solo first so you can hear it. It sounds crazy, it just sounds ugly and horrible, but if I mute that and then add it back in, you'll kind of hear the difference it's making. It's almost watery, that's the only way I can explain it. It's like, yeah, it's almost like this watery, cascading, like, little moment. And that grit, like that weird gritty texture is from Massive X, and it is called Cloudbreaker in the little, I don't know what section that's in, but it's called Cloudbreaker. Did I process this? Let's have a look. Yeah, I did. Okay, compressor, which is doing all the side chaining. I've got an EQ, which is just taking out the bottom end. And then I've got a chorus, which is obviously giving it that super like spread out, like, I keep doing this, but like, it's width, you know? I'm so strange. Bear with me with this because honestly, you're gonna realize that I'm terrible at explaining stuff. And then we just have another EQ, which is obviously taking a big dip out of like those like mids, and a lot of the top end as well, because I didn't need too much top end because the vocals on this are super, super compressed and they're super, super bright. So I knew that I did not need any of that because it was just gonna get in the way. Also, I've got loads of top end from the drums that come in later. There's lots of like little hi-hat things. So I knew immediately that I just didn't need those. And then, yeah, we've got a harp. So the harp is from Halley and Sonic. Really simple. Okay, so on this we've got OTT, which is just doing a little bit of expansion. I've got an EQ, which is taking out all the bottom end. We don't need that. Get rid of it. Verb Squeak. Wow. Verb Suite Classics, which is just giving it a little bit of space. Once again, this is on the guitar thickener preset, and then I probably tweaked this at some point. I just don't know off the top of my head, but it's just giving it some space. There was no room or anything. It was a very, very dry harp that I loaded in. So then, last but not least, is an EQ that isn't doing anything. Okay, then we have this moving saw, which is from the Echo Soundworks Strange Things preset pack. Then moving on, we have this like Juno patch, which is just from SERUM. It's like this super 80s like dark kind of like chord synth. Which by the looks of it, I created that specifically for this project. So what I'll do is I'll leave all the stems for this track and this preset and anything else that isn't already like from another pack, I'll put in the description. Then we have this 80s keys patch, which is from the Wave from Make Pop Music. This was a preset and drum sample pack that I created for Make Pop Music. One of my favorite packs ever. Like, I know I created it, but like it's genuinely pretty good. Super, super just chill, vibey kind of 80s keypad. And then we have this dark pad. And this is from Make Pop Music's Poptopia. It was another pack that I worked on for them, along with a bunch of other sound designers. I think I made this preset actually. It's called A World Away. And then we just have effects, which honestly are super simple. It's just a down hit, like a white noise kind of like. And then a little transition cymbal thing. Let's move on to the vocals, I guess, for this section. So the vocals, my vocal chain is pretty much the same throughout. It's just a couple of little tweaks, so I won't cover this too much, but this is the lead in solo.
Someone in the mirror staring back at me. Is it a stranger? 'Cause you hardly recognize me, or the person that I am. I'm just a shell of the man I once was.
On this, I've got Autotune Pro. We love Autotune Pro. She's an icon, she's a star, we love her. Moving on, I'm not going to talk too much about pitch correction because I think I'm going to do a separate video on it. Moving on, I've just got a really simple EQ here that is just taking out a lot of the low mids and the bottom end that I don't need. I'm really high passing this. I tend to high pass my own vocals quite a lot. There is a lot of these like kind of low mids that are scooped out here. Moving on, I'm de-essing before I hit my compressors with Pro DS. This is something that I've been doing recently where I de-ess before I hit my compressors and then after. With that, I tend to get a little bit more control over my top end. And I can tend to boost everything pretty high and pretty bright without getting all that sibilance back. Moving on, we have Virtual Mix Rack. I use Virtual Mix Rack constantly. Slay, I love you. That's all I have to say. Genuinely, the All Access Pass is like, you know, if I could get rid of every single audio subscription I had and just keep on, it would be the All Access Pass, like hands down. Okay, so Virtual Mix Rack, we have this, and we have like an 1176 style compressor, which honestly isn't doing too much in terms of gain reduction. It's just kind of controlling things. The custom opto is doing a lot more, which is kind of the other way around than I would usually do, right? I would usually really squish it with a 76 and then hit it with like a 2A, and the 2A would kind of doing that like the final, you know, squish glue. This time around, the custom opto is doing a shit ton. So if I play this, you'll see on the meters.
Someone in the mirror staring back at me. Is it a stranger?
I'm getting a shit ton of gain reduction on this, but because the actual arrangement is so dense, because the, you know, that bottom end doesn't move, it's very like drawn out long notes. I can kind of get away with squashing that vocal a little bit more because there's just no movement. Like everything is super like sausage together. And even in terms of mastering, this is a squashed mix. Like this is way louder than I would have usually mastered something. Okay, next we have FGN, which is that like 70s style British EQ. Love FGN. It has like a really distinct like tone and color that I really like, especially on my own voice personally. So just going into this, we obviously we're taking out a little bit of 2K. I say a little bit. It's, you know, a solid amount, around 4 dB. 2K is the worst on my voice. It makes me violent. It's just ugly, nasty, brash, horrible. I'm taking out a little bit of 1.6K as well, just to reduce some of that honkiness, and we're taking out a little bit of the bottom end as well. Not much at all. Moving on, we've got another de-esser, really simple, another EQ, and here we're just doing a little bit more general shaping. We're just taking out a little bit more of the bottom end, a little bit more of the low mids, a little bit of like 1K, a little bit of 3K, and then we're just boosting that top end as well, just to get that little bit of sparkle and a little bit of sheen. Next, Slay. A lot of people for some reason are shitting on Metatune. I don't know why. I'm personally, you know, a fairly big fan of it. I will always be an autotune boy. Autotune will forever be in my heart. But going into that, it's just doing a little bit more tuning. It's really nothing major. It's just kind of like solidifying everything and gluing everything together. Just getting that pitch nice and tight. Okay, now we have a multi-band compressor, and I'm just kind of compressing like that 3.5 area and also the low mids. I really enjoy using multi-bands on the low mids, especially because my voice can get honky and horrible and boxy.
Is it a stranger? Cause you hardly recognize me. You're the person that I am. I'm just a shell of the man I once was.
Like I said, bear with me while I explain this shit because I never have to talk when I'm working. So like when I have to explain something, I'm like, come on, brain, work. Okay, here we have another EQ. So I'm boosting a little bit of 4K just to kind of bring back that intelligibility and just so that like there's a little bit that's just pushed up so that you can hear what I'm saying, especially when the mix gets a little bit more dense. And then I'm just taking out some resonant frequencies that are just ugly and gross. Okay, then the last two things we have is Pro C, just another compressor. It's really not doing much, to be honest. If I like solo how much it's doing. It's just doing that final like little caress on top, which is just gonna like smooth everything out a little bit. We love her. And then once again, I've got more tuning, which I really didn't need, but for some reason I just put it on. Probably because I was probably going back and forth in A-Bing between Metatune and Autotune, and I probably just kept them both on. That's probably what I did. So these are super tuned vocals and super tight. Moving on, we have an artificial low vocal, which I basically just rendered out from my full vocal chain, including all the reverbs and delays, and I just pitched it down. It's super gross, super artifacty, super phasey. It's really not pleasant, but blended together, I actually really like the result.
Mischievous behavior, and I love the feel of it, tasting the danger.
Let's move on to the drums here, because the drums are pretty fun as well. So we've got a kick. I've duplicated that and then just turned off the output so that I can use that as a sidechain trigger. And then we've kind of just got all these like little hits and little percussion things that are obviously giving that like shuffly, garagey kind of vibe. And then I'll start adding in the hats as well. And then it's just a clap. And then we've got that crazy sidechain like nature sound. And then down here we've just got some like reverse effects and stuff, which I'm actually going to cover in another video. Okay, so let's move on to the chorus. The chorus is very similar in terms of almost everything. The only thing that I've added in is this thing from the drums. It is another like trashy top loop. It's super ugly. And then these two big beefy like room snares, which are like really thick. If I put all those together, it just builds up the energy a little bit. And then if I go into the bass as well, the bass does change here. We have this dark Reese bass, which I think I probably created for this song. So I'll put this in the description too. And then we have this top layer as well, which is obviously giving it that like kind of upper mids and that like crunchy gross stuff. So these presets here I'll shove in the description along with all the stems. The vocals here obviously build up quite a lot, so let's play those in solo.
I can't handle all this pain. I hate to break it to you, but nothing feels the same. I don't know who I am. I can't believe we didn't go to plan. I thought it was me and you.
So yeah, this is basically a lead, two doubles, a low octave, and an artificial harmony. It's really nothing major at all. Like, This was a super simple arrangement, and I think it's because of the way that like the bass is drawn out and all the synths, and obviously you've got that crazy drum beat. I think adding anything else here would just be overkill, and I think I would probably risk kind of overfilling it, and I just probably genuinely just probably run out of space. So if I play that chorus lead, the processing is pretty much exactly the same, I'm assuming. Yeah, it's pretty much the same. So I won't go into that. I will say though, my vocals are getting sent to a parallel widening, a short reverb, a long reverb, an eighth delay, and a quarter note. Occasionally I'll shove a slapback in there as well. For this I didn't need it.
I can't handle all this pain. I hate to break it to you, but nothing feels the same.
These are obviously a little bit harder tuned than everything else. I love autotune. I'm always going to tune my own vocals personally pretty heavy. I love it. I'm sorry if you're an autotune hater, if you're a vocal purist. I'm really sorry to break it to you, I'm not the person for you. However, you know, I've worked on tracks that have had little to no autotune on them. So, you know, it all just depends. But for me personally, on my own voice, bloody love it. I will say as well, everything on this was tracked with a Warm Audio WA47 Junior, straight into an Apollo Twin. Nothing major, really minimal setup, but it does the job. Okay, then we have doubles.
I can't handle all this pain. I hate to break it to you, but nothing feels the same.
These are actually less tuned than the lead, which is the other way around than I would typically do it. Because the lead is so tuned, I didn't want the things on the side kind of having that snap between notes. I didn't want that transition to be super like harsh. Okay, so let's go on to this. This is an artificial harmony. I love doing this. I could have tracked it, but there was something about just like pitching stuff around in very audio that just really worked.
I can't handle all this pain.
Sounds horrific, and it's buried under everything else. Like if I play this in solo again, it's really buried under there.
I can't handle all this pain.
But it's just giving it that extra kind of like harmony. Once again, the processing is the same, it's just harder de-essed along with the doubles. The doubles are pretty de-essed. And then we've got the octave down as well. I am going to do a separate video on vocal processing and vocal effects and stuff, so if you're interested in any of this, or you just want to learn a little bit more, there will be a video coming on that soon. Okay, the second verse, once again, vocal processing is pretty much the same. However, there's two things in here that I pop in, which I think really make a big difference. So if I just play this whole section here.
1,000 cuts again. Nothing hurt me like you do, becoming strangers. But I see the way you move, and I don't want to admit that it's with somebody new. Oh, if it's in my head, then why does it feel so real? Is it all fiction?
So the first thing is that I drop everything out for like a single beat, and I introduce just a reverse delay. And I think doing this is the most simple thing ever, but I feel like it had such a huge impact on the song. Because I could have just copied and pasted the sections and had it, you know, exactly the same as the first verse, which it pretty much is almost identical. However, all I did down here, if I go down to my sends, is I literally just dropped everything out for a beat. So all you get on that is the clap and the kick and this like reverse vocal. And it's such a small space, but it gives this like really big like suction kind of like lean into the vocal. And the minute I did this, I was like, shit, like I think the song's like almost done. So. And on Is It All Fiction, we have this artificial harmony as well, which I think I did in Very Audio.
Is it all fiction?
Which is format shifted in autotune, pitched around a little bit. And once again, vocal processing is pretty much the same as the lead, it's just format shifted. Moving on to the last chorus, the only thing that actually comes in is strings. Now I have these two from Contact. And they're almost behaving as a synth. The drums are the same. We obviously have some rises and down hits and swishes and stuff, which is just obviously very basic like effect. And we have a couple of like little processed accent vocals here. And then on the second part of the chorus, I've chopped up the vocals literally by just chopping them and just messing them around a little bit.
was me and you against the world. I thought it was me and you against the world.
And then we have one final little against the world section that I've just pitched up. Really nothing insane on this production at all. Like, it's really not that intricate. It's really not that detailed. It's just a big kind of really squashed, really sausage, dark, sad production. That's really all it is. I've definitely worked on other stuff that's a little bit more detailed. I've got a song coming out hopefully in like a month or so that is a little bit more detailed and a little bit more intense. But other than that, this is generally super, super simple. And possibly the most simple song I've put out in a long time. I think maybe other than Morning Hue. I think Morning Hue is like really, really simple. But this is, you know, really, really basic. So yeah, I kind of wanted to kick off the YouTube channel with a video like this where I just kind of break down like a really simple production and kind of just get into the swing of things. I'm hoping that soon I'll be able to kind of like really go into the nitty gritty and do some like crazy, you know, sound design stuff and some vocal processing stuff and some vocal editing stuff. So I do want to say a big thank you to everyone that's watched. I really appreciate you for being here. I would really appreciate it if you'd subscribe too. That would be great. And yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in any of these stems or any of the presets that I can give away in this, they will be in the description. And if you want to chat to me, if you want to contact me for productions, vocal editing, remixing, whatever it is, I'll leave all my links in the bio description. I will leave my website link in the description as well. Or you can just go to ashtillermusic.com/contact and you can contact me there. Yeah, I just want to say a big thank you once again for watching, and I will see you all hopefully next Friday.